You have a jig picked out?
This is a little too somber. Let's see
Oh
here.
yeah, we definitely need an upbeat jig. We
Definitely.
don't need a somber jig.
That's a good one. All right. It's called River Wide. River Wide. Okay. Ellie, test, quiz, St. Patrick. Was he credited with driving out A, the rats, B, the spiders, or C, the snakes from Ireland?
D, all of the above.
No, snakes. Was he born in A, Ireland, B, Italy, C, France, or D, Britain?
France.
Probably. Maybe Britain, maybe France. Although I've heard that there's a rumor that it might have been Italy, but I think that's too far fetched. How did he end up in Ireland? Did he move there because he wanted a better neighborhood, for health reasons, because he was enslaved and taken there, vacation?
Vacation. I hear it's a great place to live. Especially then.
Yes. He was a shepherd slave for 6 years in Ireland, and then went back to France and maybe back to Britain. Very little is known about him.
Interesting.
But he did have like he wore a green top hat, and he played the fiddle, and had a red beard with no mustache, and we know.
Sounds like a fashion icon.
And he drank green beer. That's right. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone, and welcome to the Veterans Breakfast Club. Here we are, our St. Patrick's Day edition. I am Todd, and this is the Veterans Breakfast Club. And with me is Ellie. Hello, Ellie.
Hello. Happy St. Patty's Day.
And Ellie is in Chicago, where the rivers run green.
Yes. I haven't been down there to see it in person yet, but I hear it's green.
and I asked Ellie, I said, how much green beer have you drunk already today? A, 1 pint, B, 2 pints, 3, or C, 3 pints?
Only 2 pints. You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Good approach. I have my green beer here, and I hope you guys are all doing well. Hello, Don Nemchek. Hello, Chris Perolo. Hello, Joanne hair up on. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a festive hat on. And I absolutely want you to, we're going to be talking with you about the wonderful article you wrote about not only Julia, but also your mom. And I saw Julia was on. Julia was in the waiting room. Where did she go?
She's there.
Is she here?
It says Julia's connecting to audio.
Okay, because I want
in her house.
I promised Julia the floor this morning, and she will absolutely. Hello, Julia. Good morning.
It's Rich. Yes.
There she is.
Good morning, Julia. I promise you the floor, and you're gonna have my head if you don't get it. I think you're good, Julia. Maybe you don't hear us. Oh, she has to get her earbuds in. That's it. All right. Good morning, Julia. Oh, we still don't hear you. Is that a problem on our end, Al, maybe?
I'm not sure. It might be that Julia has to connect to audio.
Oh, okay. So you're not Julia. Oh no. Okay, she's connected to audio, it seems. Mm-hmm. Could it be an earplug issue?
Yeah.
Didn't we have that before?
Maybe once. Is it or the earbuds are plugged into the
Then I can't hear at all.
Oh, you can't. So you can. Okay, hold on. Let's figure. We hear you.
Get back to me later.
Okay. And we have Kay Fluid from Texas. Good to see you.
Good morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Kay. Thank you for joining us from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Kay is a state officer in the state Texas DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution, and also local chapter in Dallas-Fort Worth. And you're here to wish Julia a belated happy birthday. And we were just trying to connect. Julia's here, but as you can see, she's having this issue that's happened before where Ellie, you plug in the earphones and the audio doesn't work.
Does she have to use the earphones or?
If she doesn't have the earbuds in, she can't hear. She's having hearing problems, which apparently happens when you turn 100.
Hey, it happens before that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you, Julia.
Okay.
Yay, happy birthday. Happy belated birthday, Julia.
Thank you so much.
From Texas, from Grapevine, Texas.
Oh,
I was so excited that we get the opportunity to send you a card and to wish you personally a happy birthday for your service that you've done. We are so honored. And it's just so nice to meet this whole group. So thank you.
It's a wonderful group, Kay, and thank you for joining us. And feel free to stay with us. Julia joins us most every time, and even though we had the big birthday celebration on March 2nd, and we've had events since then. I've kind of kept her muted, and she emailed me and said, like, I want to, I need to thank all the people who kind of sent me cards and gifts and things. So Julia, I don't know if certainly not everybody who sent you things are here, but why don't you take the floor and say thank you?
I will, and I thank you for giving me the time. I so enjoyed all the cards I got. I must have gotten 100 cards. I did not count them, but a lot of them were just signed from a Veterans Breakfast Club member, fellow, whatever, veteran. And some of them told me their whole stories. So I'm going to shoot those on to Todd and see if he can get some of them to get on the program, because some of them were really detailed and pictures and interesting. So, but I thank you all, and I wish I could thank you all individually, but I don't have your email addresses, and my writing is not that good anymore. So maybe I can thank you in person as I see you. So thank you.
And Julia, I'm not sure if you heard, but Kay Fluid, who just said, wished you happy birthday. She sent me an email yesterday and said that that we want to, our DAR chapter here in Texas wants to send a birthday greetings to Julia. I invited her to come on this morning, and I'm very pleased that she joined us. So she is here from Texas just to say happy birthday and wish you the best.
Oh, thank you, Kay. Thank you very much.
It's so nice to see you pretty close in person, as much as we can be right now. And to your whole group, I assume everyone is a veteran in your group?
No.
Okay. Well, to all the veterans in your group, I want to say thank you. And as a member of Daughters of the American Revolution, we certainly support patriotism and education and anything that's the good old USA. So thank any and all for their service. And I'm so proud to be able to say that to your group this morning.
Thank you so much, Kay. The Veterans Breakfast Club is a group of veterans and non-veterans. I'm not a veteran, that come together to hear veterans share their stories. And we've been doing this in Western Pennsylvania for 13 years. This year we've gone virtual. And so we've been able to have people like you from around the country join our group. And it's just, you never quite know what you're going to hear. We invite all veterans from all eras and ages and branches of service to share their stories. And I think that these events are more important and instructive for the non-veterans who learn so much.
Yes.
And the veterans seem to enjoy it. So we've been keeping it up. And the DAR here in Pennsylvania have been very, very supportive of what we've been doing. So we're very grateful to the DAR. Thank you, Kay. And I'll send you a note just saying, hey, if any of your members ever want to join us for any of our events, they'd be very welcome. They're open to everybody.
Thank you. We have a chapter meeting tomorrow night, so I will be sharing that information with our group. We're actually the largest chapter in our district now. And so hopefully we can send lots of well wishes. If we can in person, then anybody that that's that would like a card, a veteran liking a birthday card, please feel free to always let me know, and we would be glad and honored to send a card.
You know, we have another
Thank you.
vet who might be joining us today. I'm hoping he joins us, Jacques Hutchins or Jack Hutchins, who actually lives in my community here. I've never met him, but I heard that he turned 100 yesterday. He's a
Oh.
Navy vet.
Yes, if
And-
you could send me his address, I'd be honored to send a card.
Very good.
So
Will
that would
do.
be wonderful. Okay.
We'll do. He
I
would
have
love
to
that.
go, but thank you so much for allowing me to be here a few minutes and to say again, birthday wishes, and that I hope all of you have a wonderful day. And don't forget your green. I see a lot of you in green. That's good. My heritage is Scotland, and Ireland. So I'm glad to see that. So again, thank you, Todd, for reaching out. I really appreciate it. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be able to find the information, but I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Kay.
So thank you.
Take care. Thanks for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
And-
Thanks.
Sean Hall, you are right. Chris Parolo wins the prize.
Hey, I gotta show you this button. Hang on a second. My favorite. It says,
I'm not.
"I'm not Irish, but kiss me anyway." My favorite button.
That's good. Very
And
good.
I have something for emergencies in case I run into a pine.
Very good.
That's what's in here.
That's great. And Brent,
Top of the morning and happy St. Patrick's Day to all.
happy St. Okay, here's a quiz. St. Patrick. I gave Ellie this quiz and she passed with flying colors. No.
Hardly.
Okay. St. Patrick. Where was St. Patrick born?
Scotland.
Anybody?
Italy.
England.
He's
So
British.
Dale says Italy. Chris says
I said England.
oh, you said England. Okay. Did somebody say Italy?
I said Scotland.
Jeff said Italy. Scotland says Ben. Answers we don't know. We just know that he wasn't born in Ireland. He was for many centuries. It was assumed that he was born in Britain. But a book came out about 6 or 7 years ago that pretty much proved that he wasn't. That he was probably born in Brittany, which is in present day France. And what we do know is there's also I think an oddball theory that he was literally from Italy. But he was enslaved and was taken to Ireland as a slave. And he worked there as a slave shepherd for 6 years before he escaped. And then that's when he had a conversion experience, went back to Ireland, and he drove all the spiders out of Ireland. Right, Ellie?
Yeah, he was
Apparently,
supposedly,
it's news to
he was
me.
supposedly taken by Irish, or I think Irish pirates or something over to Ireland. And that's where he,
Hey,
Yeah.
Navy.
The Navy. So
Navy bunch again.
that's kind of what I was getting at is we know that he crossed the Irish Sea, he crossed the English Channel several times. And so we're going to put him in the Navy,
All right.
maybe Coast Guard, maybe Coast Guard. Yes, and he drove the snakes out of Ireland. That's the legend.
That'd be the Marines.
I want to welcome Brent Wingfield. I don't think I've seen you on this event before, and I just always like to welcome people who are here for the first time. If you want to introduce yourself, you could feel free to unmute. There we go. I'll ask you to unmute. And KDB, good to see you also. Hi, KDB. Haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Brent.
Hey, Todd, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right, great. Hey, thanks for having me today. This is the first time I've ever joined this call.
Good.
I reached out to Ellie. Yeah. I reached out to Ellie to see if you guys could help us share a post about one of the VA's programs called Make the Connection. And she invited me to come on here and just talk about it.
Sorry,
So
I
I'd love
did not.
to if I have a moment.
Absolutely, Brent. I'm very sorry about that. I flubbed that. Ellie had the notes. I didn't have it in my notes for today, but now that you remind me. Thank you, Brent. Brent, why don't you make that announcement here? And I know that I'll go to the Make the Connection website and share it.
Okay. Well, just a little background on me. I'm an Army vet. I was in from 2004 to 2012. I was in the infantry, and I deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan. And now I work for DCG Communications, and we're contracted by VA. I do outreach for Veteran Crisis Line, MakeTheConnection.net, and some of the other VA programs and services. But I'd love to talk to you about MTC, as I like to call it, or Make the Connection, and just like a real high-level overview of what that is, because I don't know about y'all, but I had never heard of it before I started working here. Make the Connection, thank you for pulling that up. So MakeTheConnection.net was launched by the VA about 10 years ago, right about the same time as VeteransCrisisLine.net. It's not a .gov, it's a .net on purpose. Try to be less govy and less official, if that makes sense. This whole thing is really just meant to be a peer-to-peer based platform, kind of in the same vein of what it seems to me like you guys do here every week, where you guys gather and you tell veteran stories. Would you go ahead and click on the videos tab up there on the very top? All right. So on here, this whole point of this platform is literally just to be like a peer-to-peer kind of thing, where vets, these are all 100% veteran stories told as they wanted to say it. There's nothing is scripted, nothing is I mean, you know, it might be in like a set, but these are 100%, they're legitimate stories. And all this is like, hey, I'm Brent, I'm an Army vet, I went to Iraq, I had this problem maybe, and here's some things I used to get over it, or here's how I was able to find help. And that's it pretty much in a nutshell. I mean, you go up to the video section, you can search, and you can find videos. It doesn't matter if you served in, say, Korea or Vietnam or Afghanistan, or you never deployed, you were Navy, Coast Guard, Army, don't matter. You can find a video that's, you know, a veteran of the same gender, if that matters, the same branch of service, the same time in service, whether or not they had combat experience, or some of the life experiences that they've gone through since then. And hopefully you can find something that would resonate with you, that would be relatable to you as a vet, or if you have a veteran in your life, you know, you can learn about some of the issues that may be affecting them. And then there's also a resource locator on site where we can get veterans connected to any local, state, national level resources. And that's all stuff from the National Resource Directory, the nrd.gov. What did I miss? I kind of talk all over the place.
No, Brent, yeah, several of our veterans here with the Veterans Breakfast Club over the years have done interviews for Make the Connection. Right when the program started, I do remember referring several veterans to it, and they did it beautifully. And I thought I would share just one with a World War II veteran who I was very close with, who passed away several years ago, named Norm Waldman. He was one of the first among our group to do a Make the Connection video. And I thought it was so appropriate for him to do that because he was in the 82nd Airborne in World War II. He jumped D-Day, landed 20 miles off course, was captured after 4 days, wounded, and put in a boxcar, sent to a German POW camp. En route to the POW camp, an American P-51 swooped down and strafed the boxcar and killed several of his fellow POWs. They didn't know it was a POW train. He arrives at the prison camp. It starts to starve, tries to escape, gets captured. I mean, it's a whole epic story. He eventually volunteers to become a prison laborer and gets to get paid wages and food, and he gets sent to Dresden right before it was firebombed. He's with Kurt Vonnegut in one of the bomb shelters in the slaughterhouse, underground slaughterhouse, Slaughterhouse 5, and he survives, and then has a harrowing liberation with the Ukrainian Red Army, fights on the Eastern Front until the end of the war, and then is liberated. And he came to our events very early on, and it was right about when he started coming to our events that he realized he had PTSD. He said it really affected him, certainly after the war, but even in later life, he had a late onset. So that's all just to introduce you to this 2-minute video I thought I would play of him, because he is so he was such a important part of the Veterans Breakfast Club early on. I'm going to make sure I'm sharing my sound as well as the screen here. All right. Here we go. Sorry to step on your lines here, Brent, but it just triggered my memory here.
No issue. That's a very
My
powerful
first name's
story.
Norman.
And-
I served in combat. I was in the 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 82nd Airborne Division. We jumped in France, in Normandy. We had combat against the Germans. Of course, they had us outnumbered, something terrible. They took us prisoner. So I went up there to Dresden Links. If you're ever in a bombing where they're dropping 500-pound bombs, the concussion is so great. See, we were bracketed with bombs. The concussion picks you up, and you can't. You're being picked up by an invisible hand, and it was terrible. I mean, you're scared as hell, you know, that one of the bombs is going to take you away. You grow up real fast in combat, and then you see the other guys that you knew, you know, get hit. That was what gave me the post-traumatic stress disorder. When I got out, when I first got married, I had terrible nightmares. Well, you go in and they'll ask you what happened to you in the combat, you know. Do you have any problems? Well, I knew I had problems because I saw it so much. I saw so many people get killed. I did have a counselor. This was in Philadelphia. And between the counselor and myself, I brought myself out, really, with their help. And my wife helped. She was a teacher. And I married her. And she also helped, talking. But the VA has done wonders for me. I just can't thank them enough. I was lucky enough to get myself straightened out. I'll tell you right now, if there's guys out there that need help, the VA will give them all the help in the world. Any GI that has any fears, any kind of fears, or any problems, and doesn't take advantage of these people that are schooled, these psychiatrists and psychologists, they have to get help. They have to. The VA has done everything they could do for me, and I'm thankful.
Oh, Norm was so great. So are you inviting people, number one, to, you know, to check out the website, you know, get the word out about the website and I guess get the help that's needed? Maybe, are you taking submissions of videos?
Not submissions right now. So typically our team would go around the country on like market tours in certain key geographic areas and solicit stories and do a filming round, et cetera. But, you know, last year kind of threw us a big curveball. So we're kind of readdressing how that all works. But in the event, you know, we are doing recruiting for new photo or video shoots. If we could reach out to organizations like Veterans Breakfast Club, like, hey, we'd love to tell some more veteran stories. You have anyone who'd love to make one of these videos, we can put you in touch. So when that time comes, I'd love to be able to plug you guys and, you know, put that, you know, some feelers out there. But regardless, would definitely love to just put this out there just so that more veterans are aware of this resource and that, you know, their friends and family members are too. I think there's something very powerful in this storytelling thing where it can be very cathartic for the veteran. I found that in my own case. But it also, you know, so you never know who overhears that or who else is on this call that just hears that one thing that just makes it all come into place for them. So yes, anything we can do to help get more eyeballs on, you know, Make the Connection, get more veterans in the door to VA programs and services, any help is definitely appreciated.
Got it. Yeah, we'll definitely share this link and the information about Make the Connection. Can I ask you again? I didn't hear when you joined the Army. What year?
In 2004.
2004.
I was in high school, yeah, during 9/11. I joined in 2004. I served in the 101st Airborne.
101st Airborne. What made you want to join the Army?
My dad was an infantryman when I was a kid. My great grandpa was in the Army Air Corps. His father was in World War One. I mean, it just goes back and back and back. And that's just on my father's side. My mother's side is much the same story. But I think it was really the movie Black Hawk Down when I was in high school. I was like, oh, that looks so fun. It didn't look fun. I don't know what I was thinking. But, you know, it's kind of a family tradition.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, that's how it often is, a family tradition. And what made you want to join the Airborne?
I didn't really have much of a choice in that one.
Okay.
And I wasn't airborne. The 101st is no longer airborne. It's
Okay.
air assault. So they're helicopter based. But yeah, I just luck of the draw, I guess.
Luck of the
I got to
draw.
end up in the 101.
Luck of the draw. Boy. And so you did 8 years and then got out.
That's correct.
Okay.
It was definitely, for me, it was my own confusing time in life after done multiple deployments. I had my ex-wife had a son. My dad ended up getting cancer. It was just like all this, like life kind of has this like effect or habit of like crescendo effect of like everything just kind of when it rains, it pours, right?
Yes, it does.
Well, it was pouring and I was in a really weird place. And you know what? Thank God for the VA and thank God for other veterans that were there for me.
Yeah.
You know, I was able to pick myself up with my friends' help. You know, people I served with staying in touch with me, or just other random veterans that I would meet, whether it's in like, you know, the vet centers doing therapy programs or on, you know, groups like VBC here. This is awesome.
Brent, can I ask you a question that I don't think I've posed the question to veterans in quite this way, but it's something that seeing Norm Waldman, it made me remind me, I've heard this from World War II veterans who are sent overseas for 2 years, 2.5 years. They said that you come back home and you realize kind of life has gone on without you. And it's kind of unnerving how, you know, people have, you know, maybe children or friends, people, you know, people who are close to you have new jobs or they've moved. And it's just kind of jarring to come back home to a kind of a table that's been reset, you know, in a sense. Did you experience that?
I can relate to that for sure. You know, I was actually talking to a friend about that the day I got home from Iraq, and we're turning in our weapons to the arms room, getting ready to sign out on leave, doing the whole nine, right? And it was just so strange to be back in, you know, at Fort Campbell in Kentucky, where the grass was green. It looked exactly the same as the day we left. Like nothing had changed. Not one thing, but you felt like you'd lived a decade in that time. And you kind of, so for me, it was kind of this duality where like half of me kind of expected sort of everything to be there exactly the way it was when I left. And then I was kind of surprised when it wasn't. And then on the other side of the coin, I expected everyone to be like, you know, very different. And then was kind of shocked when things were the same. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, because you had changed. I mean, that's, you know, you had changed in a really profound way, more than anything back home had changed, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'd say that. That's more than fair.
Hmm.
I mean,
interesting.
you
Does
definitely,
anybody...
you grow up pretty quick in certain environments. You know, like what was it Norm in the video just said? You know, you grow up fast, and that accelerated whatever. When you come home, you realize not everyone got put through that ringer or had that. Yeah.
Does anybody have a question for Brent or a comment? Well, Brent, I just want to invite you to come back anytime you would like to talk about Make the Connection, to talk about your own service, to join us from. Where do you live?
So I'm outside of Savannah now.
Oh,
Right
Savannah,
by Fort
beautiful.
Stewart.
Yep, absolutely. Very good. Well, please do join us anytime you'd like. You know, you may have a job that you need to go off to, but if not, please do stick around, stay, you know, hang out with us if you'd like, but feel free to join us anytime you'd like.
All right, thanks, Todd. I will.
And share any new developments with Make the Connection, and we will absolutely pass it on. And Ellie, let's make sure that we include Make the Connection maybe in our next email that goes out tomorrow. All right. Thank you so much. I want to welcome Joanne Harrop. Hello, Joanne. I like your hat. I asked Joanne to join us, and she's another one of these people like Brent, who unfortunately is one of these unfortunate people who has a job, and I'm not burdened with such a thing. So Joanne actually had to take some time off work to come and join us this morning. So I'm really doubly grateful for you. And I asked Joanne to come for two reasons. Number one, she wrote a beautiful article about Julia that was for the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. She's a reporter for the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. And this article about Julia, she interviewed Julia on her birthday, and Stars and Stripes picked it up, which I thought was very exciting. And so if you want to check it out, I will put the link in the Zoom chat here. But she also wrote another article that I found really moving about her mother. Joanne, do you want to give people a thumbnail of what was unusual about your experience with your mother in the past year?
Well, I quarantined in her nursing home with her for 85 days. And my mother had gone into a nursing home 4.5 years ago. And last March, actually this past week, March 13th, the nursing home had to shut down visitors because of the threat of the coronavirus. And before that, I had stayed overnight with my mom a lot because she was in a wheelchair and wasn't able to do a lot of things for herself. And so the nursing home asked me if I wanted to stay with her, but if I stayed with her, I couldn't leave. And I didn't think anything about it. I thought it was going to be 2 weeks because that was the original shutdown, was going to be 2 weeks. And while I was in there, the nursing home did not get the COVID virus, but my mom got diagnosed with cancer, Brett, as you can probably relate to. You were talking about your dad. And she passed away on June 5th, but I lived with her in that nursing home for 85 days.
Let that sink in. I mean, and I know that this is not strictly a veteran story, but it absolutely touches on it, more than touches on, I think, veterans issues. Your father's a World War II veteran, your mother, World War II generation.
Yes. She lost her brother in the Battle of the Bulge. He was 18.
Oh, boy. And your devotion, just reading that article, and I'm going to share it here, your devotion to your mom, in her last months, I just thought it was so moving. And I also thought, I'm not sure if I know anybody who would do that.
A lot of people said that to me. Yeah.
I'll look. Ellie, of course, would do it for me in a second.
Yeah.
Not a chance of that happening. But I mean, yeah, it's and you have siblings, right?
Yes, I have 4 siblings.
And how did they feel about your decision to live in a nursing home and essentially be, a quasi prisoner in a nursing home for 85 days?
Well, they weren't surprised that I did it because I had, taken care of our parents a long time. But my one sister said none of us would have done that. So
yeah,
I think she realized that I was probably the only sibling that would have done that. But and I think they realized after the fact, after they read my story.
Yeah.
So.
And I do encourage you to read the story. And in the story is embedded a very brief video that I also found very moving. And I thought I'd share with it so that people could get some images of your mom and of you and of that time. It's a 3-minute video. Here we go.
Hi, that's me, Joanne Klimovich Harrop. I've worked as a reporter at the Tribune Review for 23 years. I've covered everything from hard news and sports to fashion and even high society. I love my job, and I am grateful for the opportunity to have been part of so many amazing stories about the proud people who live in this beautiful city and region. Despite the fast pace of the job, I always made time for my friends, my husband, and spent every Sunday taking my parents to church and having homemade spaghetti dinners at my childhood home. Sadly, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and we knew the end of her life may be near. And then the global pandemic hit, and the nursing home offered me a chance to be by my mother's side for end-of-life comfort. I didn't think twice about it. Since childhood, we were inseparable. My mom had sacrificed everything to give me the best life she could, and there was no way I was going to leave her alone. This is the story of my mother and me. It is the hardest story I will ever have to tell, because I lived it. When I got to the facility, I was glad to see my 93-year-old mom. I told her we were quarantined because of a virus, but that I was going to be with her every day. We ate a lot of the same food, talked to the same workers every day, but we found ways to pass the time, from doing puzzles to playing bingo.
Oh, 72!
We sang Take Me Out to the Ball Game for what was supposed to be Major League Baseball's opening day.
Root for the home team if they don't win into shame.
Words 1, 2, 3 times around the ball game.
We were treated to Minio's Pizza and Big Jim's wedding soup, that was her favorite, and spaghetti and homemade meals of meatloaf, roast, and cheeseburgers from a very close friend. Sometimes we just did silly things out of boredom, and we did it together. While my reason for being there was to be by my mom's side at the end of her life, as I walked down that nursing home hallway on my way home one last time, I had an overwhelming feeling that I had been blessed by the experience. I got to eat each meal with her, have those long conversations that most of us never have time for. We prayed together, often. But most importantly, I was there to hold her hand as she took her last breath. That night in her bed, lying there alone, I realized that if it had not been for this experience, I could have never truly known what it would be like to die alone, and that my mom wanted me to tell you the story.
Oh boy. Joanne, you've got to hold it together.
I'm trying.
I mean, it's just because it's what a story. What was your mom's frame of mind after she knew that she was, going to gonna die of cancer?
She was strong. I mean, we talked about all kinds of things. She said she didn't want anything major, like chemotherapy or anything like that. She was ready, I think. She wanted to be with my dad,
Yeah. And she understood the sacrifice that you were making living in a nursing home.
Yes.
What was the toughest thing about living in a nursing home and not leaving?
Well, first of all, like fresh air, and when I stayed the last night, like just the loneliness, you know what that's like. Cause I didn't have anything packed up in her room. So the night that she died, they said I could stay one last night if I wanted to, because if I had left, they would pack everything up for me, but I couldn't take what I wanted, whatever. So, I mean, it's so sad to be in there by yourself.
Yeah. So that one night, that last night was the night that you got insight into what it would be like to be there all alone.
Yes.
Boy.
And what people in nursing homes go through.
And what they go through.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions for Joanne or comments?
Oh, yes, I see that one question. I did know a lot of the residents because I had pretty much been there 4 years with my mom. So I would visit them. I mean, a lot of times I had to just go to the door though, because, they didn't want me to go in their rooms because of the whole COVID thing. But, once we started wearing masks, I go into their room, and the one woman I played cards with, I still talk to her every day. She's 97. But
Mm.
yeah, so I did. And that felt good too.
I see Mary said that she's doing ugly crying at work.
I would
Thanks for that story. And then she also said, and Chris, I will get to you, but she also said, were you able to confront any other seniors who were there with you? I think she means comfort.
Yes.
Although I like the idea of you confronting other seniors in a nursing home.
I did. No.
Chris Parolo.
Yes, Joanne, I'm glad you were able to do that. My name's Chris Pearl from Penn Hills. My mother is 94 and she's been sequestered for 1 year and a week now. It sounds strange, but I'm going to say that you were lucky.
Yeah,
that
I
they allowed
agree.
you to do that, that they allowed you to do that. And I'm very glad they did, because I know of many families who have not been able to touch their loved ones for 1 year and a week now in the place where my mother is, and all places actually.
I know.
What has sustained me and my sister is they arranged for Zoom calls. And we were able to do that twice a week, one for me, one for her on different days, and keep in touch with Mom. And after 5.5 months, we had our first personal visit at distance. And we've had 4 so far, including the one last week where they opened up pretty good. So we were close, but not touching. But that's an ongoing thing. And I cannot imagine, it's been on my mind for a year now, but I cannot imagine a crisis where somebody is lost and you cannot be with them at all. In the end, it's heartbreaking. So I'm glad you had, again, understanding this, I'm glad you had that experience. It sounds to me like a rare experience, though. You don't hear this very much from other people. So my sympathies and condolences.
Thank you. I'm glad that you're at least getting to see your mom. That's good.
It sustained us all this time.
Yes. And the thing with like the FaceTime, like the seniors don't understand that, it's hard for them.
Was it a hard story to write as a writer?
The hardest, yes.
Okay, it was hard to write. Okay.
Yes. See, when I first wrote it, though, I mean, you had the version that ran was obviously edited, but when I sat down and wrote it, it was 12,000 words. So it was easy to write everything, just more emotional, I guess,
right.
I had a lot of material, obviously, but
yeah, 12,000 words. You're about a quarter of the way to a book.
I am thinking about writing a book. So yes.
And I think it would be one that a lot of people would really learn a lot from and would be intrigued by. The article is called "A Daughter's Promise: The Story of an Unbreakable Bond That Withstood the Test of a Lifetime." And I put the link here on the Zoom side. Ellie, if you want to share that on the Facebook side, that'd be great too. Here's another picture. What was your mom like? Like as a mother?
She was strict. Very strict. But, she liked to have fun and do a lot of things too. So she was my best friend.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Oh boy. I feel badly, Joanne, for putting you through this.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Conversation. I really do. I guess
okay.
I'd assumed since you had written about it and made that beautiful video that you'd be able to talk about it. And
no, it's all right.
Okay. All right. I'm famous for pushing people to the limit, Joanne. So in these events. So
that's all right.
You're not alone. Let me ask you about your father. You sent
Sure.
me a great, let me share the video. I know I have it
Okay.
here. About your father, who was a World War II veteran. And I know a lot of it, the first part of it is just 1 minute long. It just some photographs, and then a ceremony where he receives the French Legion of Honor.
Yeah.
And what was his service? Do you know what unit he was in?
He was in the Army, the 90th Division.
Oh yeah, okay.
He was a tech sergeant. He landed on Utah Beach. He served for 15 months.
Yeah, we have a couple 90 division vets.
Yeah.
And that looks like one of our veterans sitting next to him there at the ceremony.
That was so cool to be with those guys.
Nous vous remettons les insignes de chevalier de la Légion d'honneur.
Oh, how neat. Were there any other Pittsburghers?
There were 4 Western Pennsylvania veterans there.
I recognize some of them.
Yeah, and that was really cool because we went to the French embassy and talk about, like, you had to give ahead of time social security number, birth date, make of the car, license plate. Like when we pulled in, they had to make sure that you were who you were. It was really cool experience.
I think I recognized Clarence Brockman there. Maybe Al Zimmerman is one of the other vets seated next to him. Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, it's a wonderful ceremony.
Yeah, it's really cool. And that medal is, my dad has several medals, but that one there's really something special about it.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he like when we were young, he didn't talk about the war a whole lot, but later in his life, he did. And he said that he never, it never got to him, like, emotionally to where it, was too hard for him to talk about. And we took him to see Saving Private Ryan because he wanted to go and see that movie. And he said that opening scene was pretty realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he cried during it, but he wanted to go. Like he said he wanted to go, so we took him.
Oh boy, he was ready.
Yeah.
You're making Katie cry. Dennis McCarthy's dabbing his eyes there. St. Patrick's Day. Katie Batko, you put can you tell us about your grandparents?
I sure can. Hi, by the
Hi.
way, it's been a long time. Good to see you.
Great to see you.
Yeah, so my grandmother was 95 years old. She was in St. Barnabas, which is a fairly well-known in Gibsonia around the Pittsburgh area here. And they were both together. So my grandparents got married when I think it was my first birthday, and I'm about to be 37, so 36 years ago. And Roger became a grandfather and a husband and a father all on the same day. He was in World War II. He actually could speak Morse code, believe it or not. Like, he literally could speak Morse code.
Oh.
I remember when I was a kid, I would say, just say my name again. And he'd go like, he would do the whole thing. But he, just like you're saying, Joanne, after she passed, he just wanted to be with her, and he was done.
Yeah.
But 95 years old when grandma passed in June, and then January was when Roger went. And unfortunately, we were able to Zoom. Like you were saying, he didn't really quite get the whole Zoom thing, although he was very talented. He had his own iPad.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And his own computer and everything. But by that time he had kind of slipped away a little bit, but we were able to go in with grandma. They called us and said, if you're going to come, you should come now. And so we did. And I sang her favorite song to her, which she used to sing to me all the time when I was a child, which is "She floats through the air with the greatest of ease, the daring young girl on the flying trapeze." So I sang that to her, and I told her it was okay to go, and she went. And then Roger went shortly after. But it's a shame, Todd, because I really wanted to get Roger on this show at some point, and talk about. But I have so many pictures and things that I can share. We can do that in the future,
Was Roger on that destroyer? Was he in the Navy on a destroyer?
So that's my other grandfather.
Okay.
That's my dad's dad, and he was on an aircraft carrier, the Bonhomme Richard.
Bonhomme Richard, that's right.
Yes.
That's
right.
The
B8, they call it the Bonnie Dick. Yeah.
Right. The one.
But Roger, I have a lot of pictures of Roger though, because he was landside. He was kind of almost like Julia. I don't know if Julia is still on or not, but he was trying to, what's the word I'm looking for here? He was trying to figure out the German's code, like,
He's encoding. How interesting.
yeah, that's what he was doing. He was actually stationed in Germany.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I'll have to share his picture at some point, but
Please
thank you
do.
for bringing me up.
Please do. And Katie, thank you for joining us. If you
Yeah.
keep doing this, we're going to make you sing.
I'll sing at the end if you want.
Okay.
I'm at work,
That'd
but
be
I can
great.
go outside. I can go outside and do it.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, Katie, early on last year, Katie would come on, sing the national anthem, sing "God Bless America" for us, and wonderful to see you again. Thank you
I'll
for
close it out. I'll close it out for you.
wonderful. Thank you, Katie. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Thank you for having me on.
How about any other comments or questions from people here for Joanne? Yeah, Chris Prolo.
I just thought of something. Joanne, it might not have been unique, but you certainly were in a rare position. A journalist in a military unit is considered embedded. You're pretty much embedded in a situation in what we're calling the invisible war. So you have some good insight, your skills plus your situation. So I think a book is certainly warranted if you want to do that. I think it would be a very interesting chronicle of the times. So
I mean, I kept a journal while I was in there. That's how I had planned on, writing about us being in quarantine 2 weeks. I mean, that would be the story, but
I think it would be an incredible play, Joanne.
What was that, Sean?
I think it'd be an incredible play.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, I and even just from like taking pictures and video, I did it without really thinking, like I was like, oh, that's a good picture of my mom doing a puzzle or whatever, I mean, and even the editors said, you got great video, you got great pictures, you wrote everything down, because you think you're going to remember, but you're not going to remember. But one thing I did want to say was my father did die on D-Day, and he could have died, on D-Day 71 years before that.
Right.
And when the doctors told us there wasn't, much they could do, I said to my brother, this is D-Day, like he can't die on D-Day. And my brother was like, well, maybe there's a significance to that,
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom died the day before D-Day, that was supposed to be the original D-Day because they changed it because of weather from June 5th to June 6th. So she died on June 5th. They were both 93. They were buried on the same day. So there was some, I don't know what you would call that, but
Some kind of symmetry there.
Yeah, symmetry,
Yeah.
yes.
I agree with Chris Parolo that you were kind of, you're embedded in a nursing home on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic, and also kind of giving us a glimpse of what life is like in a nursing home. Most of us go in and out,
right,
to visit, but it's quite a different thing to live there, not only, for a couple days, but for, months. Anything that surprised you about what life in a nursing home is like?
Some of the food choices, like I'm kind of picky. So that kind of, and plus it was a Jewish run nursing home, and we're Catholic. So we had to, Passover was rough, some of the food during Passover and those kind of things. I think that and I guess similar to a hospital, like sleeping at night, because you would hear things, people would be crying, people would be wandering the halls, someone would be screaming. So, like the stuff that, you don't always get a good night's sleep, or you hear the nurse pulling her cart down the hallway, like even taking a shower, there was a shower at the end of the hall that I had to share with several of the residents, so I had to wait till they got their showers before I could get my shower, whereas at home you take your shower whenever you want to take your shower. And just, there's just a loneliness about it. I mean, especially during a pandemic, because everyone had to stay in their rooms and eat all their meals in their rooms. And it's limited television channels. They didn't have a lot of television channels. So, just Yeah, I mean, I still had a computer and stuff like that, so I had a little bit more connection. But yeah, not just being able to just get in your car and drive and go wherever you want to go. Like I didn't drive for 85 days, which I remember last time I ever
Yeah.
drove for 85 days.
Oh, boy. Thank you so much, Joanne, for being willing to come on and, share some of this story.
Sure.
And feel free to, and also thank you for the wonderful, Julia, was a good interview for you that you did.
Very
with Joanne?
good. She was so pleasant. We've become practically best friends.
We are, yes. We're gonna do lunch, aren't we, Julia? We're gonna
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Julia's fully vaccinated, so that's good with her.
Yes.
Oh, that is so great. And Joanne, if you want to go back to work, please do feel free. I just want to thank you for dropping in and sharing some of this story. If you want to hang out, you'd also be welcome to do that too, or
Okay. All right.
come
Well,
anytime.
thank all of you for your service. And Julia, we'll do lunch. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you, Joanne.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
And I'll let you know about the book. And
Yes.
the movie. Yeah, Sean, you said.
Write the book first, and the play can be made from the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thanks.
Okay.
I hope you get to see your mom for real soon. Like for real. Get to hug her.
Oh boy. She mentioned Morse, or Katie mentioned Morse code. Is Morse code still taught in the military? Chris Perlow?
Yeah, you're talking to a flunky. I flunked out of Morse code back in 1975. Here's the thing with Morse code. The dots and dashes, and people try and think dots and dashes and count them. Forget it. What you're listening for is a sound. The did da, which is V. Okay, there's a distinctive sound to that, and so if you've got I could not think that way, and therefore I could not copy fast enough to get out of that school. But it was heavily used in up until probably the 90s or so, because foreign navies, third world navies, and even the Russians, they would send pilot messages, or they would do Morse, encrypted messages in Morse, and it was intercepted. And so I don't think they teach. I don't know if they teach it anymore, but I doubt it very much.
Yeah, they teach it. My first job in military intelligence after the infantry was National Security Agency. And we had military and civilians there. And just like Chris said, across the world, they still use Morse, especially when you're talking about different forces of other countries. They use it quite a bit because they're using low frequency type radiation, and low frequency, they put Morse across low frequency because it can go a long distance. And then Kristen mentioned it, but when you're looking at Morse traffic, there's a lot of common things in there, common phrases. Like I think the one was QSL, which is like over, when somebody's talking, QSL, or at the end of the phrase. And the guys are so good. I think somebody said how people could, like the one lady said about, being able to do the name and everything like that. The guys that we have overseas that can copy Morse code can copy, the Russians, the Chinese, whatever. And when they're doing it, they're listening to it. They're listening in Chinese or Russian or whether Czech or whatever, and they're writing it down in English on script and everything or typing it. They're typing it in. That comes back to the analysts like myself. I was looking at the Russians, the Soviets, and everything, so I could read exactly what they were saying and all this stuff. And if we had code, if there was code in the message, what they'd do is they'd write the code down, and that would go over to the NSA's computers. Well, I was there at NSA back in 72, 73. That's when the Cray computers came out. The Cray computers are a very powerful computer. They had a whole acre of computers like that in the basement of NSA. We'd send the code over to them, and they'd break the code. over there, and then you could see the innards of the message. But what I was doing is I was a traffic analyst. I was looking at the externals of the message, and I was looking for frequencies, call signs, times of transmission, length of transmission, and things like that. And my biggest thing was trying to find out if the Russians were out of sector. So I'd be getting DF shots from all over the area. I'd put them in the computer and find out, okay, did that unit move? Did that regiment move at all? Because I wanted to make sure that if they go out of sector, then I'm really going to watch that unit. Otherwise, if they're in garrison, I could care less. And just, I don't know if Julia got involved in this, but I have a very low esteem of the Russians, to be honest with you. I mean, I called them the vodka drinking thugs. I said, these are like the Keystone Cops, the Russians. When people talk about manipulating computers, baloney. I think my grandson has more knowledge about computers than the Russians do. But the Russians, when they would change, let me tell you this, when they would change, this is how infantile they are. When they would change their way of doing business and everything, we'd get an indication from the guys over there doing the collection with the earphones on and listening to what's going on. And they'd tell us, okay, they switched to something. That would be like on the end of a week or something, say on a Friday. We'd get together, about 10 of us on Saturday and Sunday, would break out the change on legal pad and pencil. That's how ridiculous it was. We'd have it finished by Sunday, would mail it back out to them and say, here's all the new call signs, here's all the new frequencies, here's all the time schedules, boom, boom, boom. But we did it all on a legal pad. We didn't even have to use the computers to break them out. It's very interesting. The Morse, the Morse is very prevalent because, like you say, it goes so far on low frequency. It's very reliable communication.
Here's an article I just found from military, I guess Military Times, or from the Army. Fort Huachuca bids farewell to Morse code training. And it just says it is the end of an era. This is from 2015 at Fort Huachuca. The last manual Morse code class began here April 27th. In the future, the course will be taught at the Air Force, by the Air Force on Goodfellow Air Force Base, Texas. Does that mean that now if you learn Morse code in the military, you go to Goodfellow Air Base, assuming that's what they're still doing it there?
I really couldn't say. I don't know. I don't know where they, I knew Huachuca did it, but you have to understand also a lot of our sites overseas now are contracted.
Okay.
And that we used to have, just for instance, the Shimmy, Alaska one, that was Air Force. Well, they shut down Shimmy decades ago, but that was contracted out. So the contractors know Morse code. I mean, and you hire contractors to do it.
John Kramer, did you raise your hand? Do you have some information on this?
The only thing I know is all the Intel training now is at Goodfellow Air Base.
Okay, all Intel's Goodfellow Air Base. All right, and Dale, Dale Gower.
Yeah, this is, of course, a while ago, but I had to learn Morse code in boot camp. We had to read it off lights, but the radio men practiced it constantly, and they were really good at it. It's like a second language to them. And when I was on Polar Star, one of our radio men, Carlos Smith, I was fixing something. I was talking to Carlos, and he was practicing his Morse code. The chief was headed to the door, the radioman chief, and he said, "Watch this." And he tapped out, "Hey, chief, if you're going below, how about bringing me up a cup of coffee?" And the chief stopped at the door and turned and said, "Do you take cream and sugar?"
Yeah, good. That's good.
So Dale, everybody in the Coast Guard, at least when you were in, had to learn Morse code in boot camp.
Yeah, I did. We practiced it with actually like flashlights, and so we could read it off the lights.
Right. Was that the same in the Navy?
No, I did not have any, there was no Morse train. He's talking about signal lamps and signaling from the bridge or the ship's deck. But I don't recall any training in that at all in boot camp in '74. The Navy school, at least for my specialty, was in Pensacola, but I'm not surprised if they've, I don't know if this is a fact for the Navy, but it's not unlike the military to consolidate special training like that in one base, and therefore you're at a joint command or you're assigned to that particular place to go to. I have to ask my friend down there if they've consolidated Morse training for the Navy over at Goodfellow. I'm not aware of that.
Okay, Don Nemchek.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. I was a radioman assigned to Bainbridge, Maryland in 1971. It was about a 13-week school, and probably about 8 weeks of that was typing and Morse code. I was lucky because I could type. So it came very natural to me. And it wasn't an obstacle to learn the Morse code. It was just drudgery because it was all day. We all talked about it. You become drifty because you're getting those didahs in your ear. Okay. And all of a sudden say, man, this is all I'm hearing. So to answer your question, we had, again, about 8 weeks of it. And then the final 8 weeks was different elements of being a radioman, either at a communication station or at sea. And when I reported to my first duty station, which was the Fleet Center on Guam, as soon as I walked, after you get your clearance and get assigned to a division and all that other stuff, we were nothing but teletype, RF, because we were communicating to the ships in the Gulf of Tonkin, the ships at the 7th Fleet, and it was all tape to tape and all this ship to shore. So actually, I forgot my Morse code. This is an interesting conversation because it was so embedded in my brain 50 years ago. And now I can recognize characters, but like when he did the V dot, I could recognize a character, but I don't know which one it is. So this might be a project for me, is to go on YouTube and get some marine instruction. I don't know why, but just a challenge to myself to put that back in my head.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds like a great challenge to keep your brain nimble.
Especially nowadays. That's but no, again, it was very interesting because we were fortunate being Bainbridge, Maryland was an older base, World War II predominantly. It was also the boot camp for the female sailors, the Waves. So we had some companionship, if you will, on weekends and things. But I always came home to Pittsburgh. We had a guy from McKees Rocks, and to this day, I talked to a buddy of mine who we served together, and I said, "How in the hell did we get home from January to April, the worst time of the year, crossing from Maryland up to Pittsburgh in a junky old station wagon?" We didn't know the guy's name. He was in a class ahead of us. He posted on the bulletin board, "Ride to Pittsburgh, $5. We leave at 1500 on Fridays and come back at 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday." And we did it every time. If you missed your ride, man, you were in trouble because of being AWOL. We never missed, never overly concerned about it because we were 18, 19 years old, full of a lot of things. But it was just interesting to me. And as these fellows were talking about, we would talk in Morse code in the car. You go, did it? Yeah, he's on the left. Or so, it's not uncommon. This was a very interesting conversation for me, and I certainly appreciate the other fellas like Chris telling their side of the story. But it was my time in '71, and I see some pictures on a Facebook page I am of the graduating classes of radiomen. There were tons of us. I mean, there were like 40, 50 guys, some Waves. We had 3 or 4 female sailors in our group. And I could see the classes before and after me. I mean, they were throwing radiomen out to the fleet like crazy, which is understandable because communications was important, particularly in the Western Pacific and the Gulf of Tonkin, where I was. And it's just very interesting to me how that size of those classes, and you see some other guys maybe like signalmen or some other rate, and it just wasn't as voluminous as the number of sailors that we had who became radiomen. And they all went, it was very interesting. I'm going to cut off in a minute, but I joined the Navy with a friend of mine from high school. We went under the buddy system. We did basic and communication school together. He got orders to Morocco. Then I got orders to the Western Pacific and Southeast Asia. And my friend Vince stayed in Morocco for his whole tour of duty. Came back home after a year, married his girlfriend, took her back over to him, stayed there the whole time for his enlistment. Never seen a ship, never seen the ocean. He stayed in the desert in Morocco and enjoyed his tour of duty. It was very, very good for him. But it was just so interesting, those travels. And I just appreciate when Chris adds to his story. He was in somewhat after me, but and things had changed greatly after 74, 75 when the war ended. And it's just great to, again, be on this site. So I'm going to cut off my conversation now. Thanks again for having me. And just, these stories in the beginning were just so heartfelt. And it just makes me think how grateful I am to have my mobility. I have my wits about me, so to speak. My wife and I live a good life. And you just think, man, what's the next 10 years going to be like? What if? you know?
Yeah.
Man, it really makes you think, and I'm trying to get my head out of that right now. But
Yeah.
again, appreciate the time today, and always appreciate all these programs with the VBC. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Don. And look how complicated Morse code is.
Yeah,
This
it
is so this is it. This is the Morse code. I mean, it
Yeah.
hasn't changed at all, right?
No, not changed at all.
And you have to memorize what each of these letters and numbers is.
We had to copy and send, I believe it was 20 words per minute. Okay.
20
That's
words
a lot.
a minute.
That's a lot. I
That's a
remember
heck of a lot.
it was called practice deck, and it simulated with being on a ship. So the chief comes over and assigns me to send a flash message, okay, using Morse code. And I had confidence in myself, and I just swung. It'd be called swinging on somehow as you transmit. You're supposed to be very steady. Don't swing, okay, your transmissions, because it's too hard to read. You have to be very consistent and precise.
Yes.
So I remember sending that flash out, and the chief looked at my instructor and says, that guy just did a really good job of it. This thing went out very quickly. I had confidence in myself, and I don't say I surprised myself, but I just knew what I knew, and
Right.
it went out fastly. What really helped me, again, going on early, I knew out of high school, I could type 50, 60 words a minute real easy.
Right.
And that some of the fellas, they had to, number one, learn to type and learn to do Morse code simultaneously. That was a struggle for them. So I had it pretty easy the first 6-7 weeks while we were in school. But it just brought back a lot of good memories. And Jeff, go ahead. I'm going to end my
Go ahead,
conversation.
Don. No, I'm just giving the high sign. Go ahead, Don. Whatever.
No, I'm going to cut off now because I'm going on a little bit too long, as I usually do. But again, thanks again, and certainly looking forward to the rest of this conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, Don.
I was just going to comment, when I was in Germany, this was 83 to 86, I was the operations officer for an military intelligence battalion. And our people were on the border 30 days, each one of them would be out there like 30 days a quarter, our interceptors. And the reason why we did that is because they need at least 10 hours a week in training on language just to keep up their proficiency. So we had German, Czech, and Russian, linguists in our unit, and I'd keep them out on the border. I'd keep the equipment out there, and I'd just send them out and bring people back and send them out, and they'd stay out there. And a whole bunch of them knew Morse code because they had to be able to listen to Czech operators translate it into English,
Right.
as fast as the Czech is, whatever he's doing, in Morse code. Same with the Russians and same with the Germans. And they were very proficient, and that's the reason why we kept them out on the border, because I couldn't train them in garrison, to be that proficient. I just put them out there on live mission the whole time, and kept them out there 30 days and then bring them back in. So they spent a lot of time on the language.
Is Jim Roberts and Don Patton, is being a officer in the Army, are you required to learn Morse code? Is that one of the skills that you learn in OCS, or
Only if
no?
you're Signal Corps.
Okay, only if you're Signal Corps. So you would never have
Yeah,
used
that's about it.
Jim. Okay. All right.
Signal Corps. We came out of OCS. A few guys got the option of going to Signal Corps for the Army has something called OBC, Officer Basic Course, which is how to be an officer. If you come out of infantry OCS, you don't attend that because you've just done it for 6 months. But so the guys that finished OCS and opted for Signal, they thought they were staying out of Vietnam. One of the first things was learning Morse code. What was interesting is when I got to Vietnam, most of the Signal guys were there too, because even though they were Signal Corps, they were still infantry. And when they needed lieutenants, so Morse code, big deal. Here's a rifle.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm sorry to laugh, but yeah, that's yeah.
The laugh was on them because we, who wanted to come out of, it was a year's worth of training to get your commission, and you're going to go back into 3 more months of more schooling. I was glad to get out in the field with the troops.
Yeah. Chris Perolo.
Yeah, Todd, the card you put up there, if you look at that closely and you sound out the dots and dashes quickly, you will hear the tones. I mean, you will hear it like B, da dit dit dit, and V, dit 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 da, and Z, da da dit dit. You'll hear the differences, and it's my understanding. If you have a musical mind, I can't see you not getting this, but that's the key there. Not counting, God forbid, counting these. So you have to hear it. You have to hear.
it. Right.
But there's another thing that was mentioned in communications. There's an international book of Q and Z signals. Q and Z signals, and they are 3-letter signals which mean whole sentences. You actually have to memorize them if you want to know them. And you don't memorize all thousands of them, whatever it is, but the ones you need, you memorize. And the QSL was mentioned, and that in radio terms is, did you get my message? And normally you'll type back QSL, which means, yes, I got your message. But if you want to ask, no, QSL.
There's a whole bunch of them, Chris. Yeah, I can remember. I couldn't remember them now, but I remember getting that script in every day, looking at the Morse code and stuff like that, and printouts, and seeing those letters, those 3-letter words.
If you wanted to turn it into a question, you just put INT in front of the Z signal, which means interrogative. And it was a quick, fast way to do that, either by Morse or even in a telex, to say whole things.
Don, you know the answer to this.
You talking Don Patton? Or?
Oh, I was talking Don Nemchek. He was, but you could chime in also.
I never learned Morse code. I was in air defense, sniping Hercules missiles, and we were guarding nuclear weapons, and so that was another vocation.
Right, a whole nother vocation. Don Nemchek.
Yeah, I'll just chime in again. The Q and Z signals were very important. In the beginning, when we were at the Fleet Center, we would almost talk plain language. We knew it was encrypted going over. So if I'm talking to a ship, I would say, how you doing, matey? You guys busy today or whatever? Well, when the war accelerated and everything got a lot hotter in the Gulf of Tonkin, and our communications was so important, we got chewed out pretty good because they would review our logs and everything. They says, quit talking plain language. So you would go INTQRK. INTQRK meant, how do you read my circuit? You wanted a QRK5 because I have a 15-minute bombing run schedule coming out, and I wanted to make sure that got out to the USS America or whatever. And we still do this. I'm in touch with some of my radioman buddies on Facebook, and we always say, "How you quirking?"
How you quirking?
And it was part of our lexicon at that point, because you use INTZBO. That means what's your backlog. And so we learned that like we learned a second language, and it stayed with us, of course, unlike Morse code. But the Q and Z signals, that's an international, I think it's ham radio or something like that structure.
Yeah.
But the
that's true. That's international. I mean, I could say they use them across the globe.
Yeah, and I tell you, whenever they first started trying to break us off of plain language, because if we had a small ship, say I was communicating with a destroyer, and they got one message every half hour or something, and so you start chatting with the radioman on duty, where you guys headed, what's Liberty like in Japan, we're kicking around a little bit, just passing time. That got squelched real fast because they needed those circuits clear as Nixon accelerated the bombing runs, and we had two carrier groups out at the Gulf of Tonkin, which meant a lot of traffic was going up. I was a communications coordinator for the USS Oklahoma City, which was COM7 Fleet. And they had the Admiral on board. It was the flagship. I had 6 sends going out. I actually had a guy did nothing but butterfly my tapes, okay, so they can go out smoothly and not get entangled. I had guys light me cigarettes, believe it or not. I was on that keyboard for a good 6-7 hours straight. Hit the head if I had to. Somebody come in and fill in for me. But you had to continuously make sure that they got those messages and log them in that they were received. And they would do like, say I sent a message, ship's movement going to Da Nang, and they would come back R123. That means receipt message number 123. And then you would log that in, and then you were assured you do not have a non-delivery. And it was hectic. It really was. And I was a good operator. I'm not bragging, but I was a good operator. And they put the better operators who had some seasoning to them on those types of circuits of those Command 7th Fleet and the carriers and things. They put the newer guys or the guys a little bit slower on the small boats, like a destroyer or something, wherein he was sending one message every 15 minutes or something. So it was intense. It really was. I'll remember those days. And again, I'm fortunate. I speak with a couple buddies of mine who we served together, and we talk about it all the time. So again, these are just some good memories for me. I hope I don't dwell on too much, but I always appreciate the Navy guys telling their stories, and I appreciate Jeff's input all the time. He's very insightful.
Fascinating. This is fascinating stuff. Thank you, Don. And Jeff just left. See you, Jeff. I want to remind people we have our Vietnam Veterans Day event coming up on March 29th at 7 p.m. You have to register on Eventbrite. Our plan was to send out welcome home boxes to the first 100 Vietnam veterans who sign up. I think we've hit that 100 mark. So we're going to raise the cap to 110. I think the last day to register and ensure that you get a box is on Friday. So if you haven't registered this event and you'd like to attend, please do go to Eventbrite. Ellie, if you wouldn't mind putting the link here on the Zoom side and the Facebook side, please do join us. And tomorrow night, Sean, we have Generation 9/11. It is the 18th anniversary. Yeah, the 18th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This
And we
week.
just, I believe, a gentleman we just met yesterday who was a part of sort of planning phases. So we go in a bit more of a macro view on everything. Will be joining us tomorrow. So hoping everybody can join in for that conversation. I'm interested to learn more about what it was like on the ground as the invasion took place, the Shock and Awe campaign. Both from the Army perspective and the Marines, but each branch really. I know I read through Generation Kill and read a lot about the recon Marines that were sort of tip of the spear,
right.
The Army following them up, securing the oil fields. There was a lot going on at that point. So yeah, excited to dive into it tomorrow night.
Very good. Very good. Hey, Larry Googans.
Hey, first of all, talking about Morse code, I'll just go real quick, Todd, but in pilot training, you had to learn Morse code also. I hated it, and we all hated it. So I admire you guys that can read Morse code, and I'm amazed that you can exchange it just by hearing it.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. We had to learn it, and the reason they used it is for the navigation stations throughout the world. They identified them using Morse code. They had 3-letter identifiers, and they identified them using Morse code. And so if you dialed up the closest, let's say Allegheny here, AGC, it would give the Morse code for AGC, so you'd know that you were tuned into the correct one. Well, of course, what they have done now is they've changed it over because we're not going to learn Morse code. They changed it over, so now it says Allegheny VOR. But anyway, but they still have the Morse code. And if you look up all of those nav aids, they still show the Morse code for the 3-letter identifier. So it's still in use, but not like it used to be. So I just wanted to add in from the Air Force side of it. Yeah, I had to learn it in pilot training. And as soon as I learned it, I forgot it. So because I don't know how you did what you did. I had to write it down on paper and take it home. And anyway, but yeah, it's still in use in the military and in flying. So thanks, Todd.
And think about, hey, Leo West.
One of the first things that I went through when I was inducted was to take a test in Morse code. And of course, I failed it completely. I also did not know how to type. And guess what? I got into the Signal Corps as a teletype repairman.
So they were going to get you in the Signal Corps no matter what.
Right.
They would find a place for you. It didn't matter. Think about how remarkable it is that Morse code was invented before the Civil War. I mean, it was Samuel Morse invented it in the 1830s, and then the international language was invented shortly after that. And it's still kind of in use. That's remarkable for a synthetic language, for a language that was just invented out of whole cloth. Amazing.
In the movie Independence Day, it saved the world.
I was just thinking that. Thank you, Chris.
Mary is right that the first Morse code was sent from, I believe, Washington, D.C. by Samuel Morse to Baltimore. Now, Mary, for the $64,000, can you name what the message was? Oh my gosh, she named it. Okay, checks in the mail. What hath God wrought? What hath God wrought? is what Samuel Morse sent.
She got that answer out before you even finished the question.
And it makes me think that she didn't cheat. She didn't look it up. She didn't Google it.
That's better than Alexander Graham Bell. Watson, I need you.
Right. Hey, there's what we have some Vietnam veterans here, and I wanted to share. You may have read one of our email bulletins that went out on Monday, and I wrote a little piece about this. George Hunter, who's a second lieutenant in Vietnam, sent me some documents that he had that he was given in Vietnam, and this was one of them. And I thought I would just share some of the documents that he sent. And I found this so fascinating and so important. I'm wondering if the Vietnam veterans here on this call remember these 9 rules of conduct card that you received. If you were in Vietnam after 1967, you should have received this. Does anybody remember this?
I know the rules, but I don't remember getting the card. And I have most of the papers that they gave me over their back here. I don't have that card. I've seen that before.
You see them? Okay.
All getting that piece of paper.
Wave to him.
Hi, Dan. How are you? Dan Vaughn.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
We didn't get those in 65 and 66, but I read them. As far as I was concerned, they were useless and stupid. They really were. I'm sorry.
Dan, that's my question.
That's a personal opinion.
No, that's why I'm showing it to you. They seem a little demanding.
Yeah, exactly. If we would have had it, we'd probably used it for firewood.
They seem to
fire starters is what I'm trying to say.
I don't know if Bob Miswa remembers them. Here, I'll show it again. It's a card that you received. You're supposed to carry it around. Jim Puhala. Okay, he must be watching on. Ellie, do you want to share what he's saying here on Facebook?
He left us a comment the other day saying that he had his somewhere and that he also found a trifold ready reference facts on South Vietnam.
I'd love to see that.
He'll come on someday to share them, but couldn't make it this morning.
Okay, I would love to see that. Number 1 rule is remember we are guests here. We make no demands and seek no special treatment. Number 2, join with the people, understand their life, use their phrases. I think the only vet who probably did this on a regular basis was Jim Roberts because he was embedded.
The interesting thing about this to me is that this looks like, based on what I'm seeing, this didn't go to the USARV forces.
That's right. Yeah.
It went to the MACV force. USARV was the United States Army of Vietnam.
Yeah.
That's your standard units who were deployed as units and not embedded. That was a MACV document for the people that were in MACV who were working with the Vietnamese on a fairly direct way. That's what it looks like. That's why I'm curious. Document. It's Military Assistance Command Vietnam. Right. That was the advising.
Got it, Larry.
Yeah.
Larry, that's where it was.
What I was going to say. It's a Military Assistance Command. That probably wasn't given to the troops over there. They were the ones that went over there early. I think it was mid 60s, early 60s, that they sent over, when we were just going to be there to advise. And, and MACV is still in existence now. So, yeah, it's called MACV, Military Assistance Command.
That's the MACV patch that we wear on our shoulders.
Right.
And that was retired. In fact, you don't find a lot. If you go to the public history, you don't see much about that patch.
No.
Like I've never been able to find any museum or anything I went to the Infantry Museum of Benning. I couldn't even find that patch. It may be there now, but it wasn't there when I was there. So, MACV came into existence. They folded up in 74, wrapped up the banner, and it's gone. It was strictly there for that war.
So the soldiers who would have gotten this were MACV. That means that they were people who were working really more directly with the Vietnamese.
Well, MACV was a big command. They had people in Saigon who were clerks and doing all the stuff to get it out there. So I don't know where it would have been distributed, but I would imagine if you went in through MACV, you would have gotten this somewhere, at least starting in 67 based on the date of the card.
Right. Oh, that's helpful. That's helpful. Ken Rozicki, do you remember getting the card? Or you weren't MACV?
No, sir. It says USARV at the bottom, on the left-hand way at the bottom. but no, I don't remember receiving that card. If I did, it's buried somewhere, and it was
Yeah.
buried the very first day I got it, I'm sure.
Well, I think what I found fascinating is that the Viet Cong had a similar card or a version of the card that was handed out to their cadre and saying the same thing about how to treat the villagers. And I did a little digging and found that the Viet Cong card came from China, came from Mao Zedong, who originally came up with this idea of, you know, just a brief number of directives in 1928 as he launched his People's War, the Civil War, Chinese Civil War, communist insurgency, to build up the Red Army of a peasant base. And it was American kind of students in the army that realized that Mao Zedong's commands were actually quite effective. And this is an old picture of Mao in the 30s, Chinese Red Army, 3 rules of discipline and 8 points for attention, 1928. The 3 rules are obey orders, don't take anything from the workers and peasants, turn in all things taken from local bullies. And then the 8 points is, I love this one, put back the doors you have taken down for breadboards. Put back the straw you have used for bedding. And then this was later replaced by don't take a single needle or piece of thread from the masses. Wow. Speak politely, pay fairly for what you buy, return everything you borrow, pay for anything you damage. Don't bathe in the sight of women. Don't search the pockets of captives. So this was all intended to win the hearts and minds of local people, to make sure that the Red Army, his theory was, you know, we don't have an army now, we have something really small, but as we work our way through the countryside, we could recruit peasants into the army by following these directives. And that's absolutely what Ho Chi Minh sought to do. And that's what the Americans and ARVN sought to do in South Vietnam, in the sense of, you know, winning over the local population to the side. Jim Roberts.
Well, you know, what's interesting is when Tet happened in 68, the Viet Cong were told that the local population would rise up and support them.
Yes.
And the RF troops and the PF troops, which got a lot of bad press, unfortunately, really did a major job defeating the local Viet Cong in the battles in the interior. So after 68, that was not there. They had press gangs. They would come into a village and threaten to kill your family if you didn't come join our squad. They would take what they wanted. That was one of the big things we were after, was trying to provide security. We had the People's Self-Defense Force, the PSDF, that the Special Forces started, that we equipped and trained to try and keep the press gangs out and the tax collectors. That was what the ambushes were for. We would get word that the tax collector was coming into a hamlet one night, and we'd set up an ambush and take the tax collector out. So the Fung Wong, or the Operation Phoenix, which received a lot of bad press, part of what they wanted to do was to establish what was called the VCI, the Viet Cong infrastructure, identify those people and eliminate them one way or the other.
Right.
But when I was there, that was not the operating rules. It was take what we need and get, or else. It was, and they were never supported. They were never really able to reconstitute their large main force units. They were small squads operating.
Absolutely, such an important piece of history you just stated, Jim, and I've never thought of it in that way. So from 1960 to 1968, the Viet Cong were actively trying to win the hearts and minds of the people in the countryside. After 1968, it was revealed that they did not have the hearts and minds of the countryside, so they started playing a different game, which is join us or else, or give us or else.
Militarily, the Viet Cong lost Tet. That was a military victory. It really was. I mean, Walter Cronkite did more to torpedo the war than anything when he came back and gave his report.
Right.
And I don't know. All I know is what I read, and from what I read, if we had stayed in the war a couple more years, it would be a different picture over there right now, because the North did not have the wherewithal to keep the war up much longer.
It is. It's 10:32, but I'll say that one of the fascinating things that has happened in the field of history in the Vietnam War in the past few years has been the opening up of North Vietnam's archives about the war. Vietnam has given American scholars limited access to their state archives from the war. And man, have fascinating things been discovered that no American had ever considered before. And one of them is, this is a thesis that a growing number of scholars have, is that Tet was intended on the part of North Vietnam to ruin the Viet Cong. That North Vietnam had a bad relationship with the Viet Cong. They did, and that we knew. They didn't get along. They didn't see eye to eye. And that as North Vietnam saw the end of the war coming, they didn't want the VC there to compete with. The North Vietnamese army wanted to come in, sweep in, take over all of the South. They didn't want a Viet Cong there to compete with them. And so they wanted to wipe out the Viet Cong. And Tet was part of this larger strategy to erode the military power of the National Liberation Front in the South. That's a growing thesis, which is crazy to think about, but that might have been going on. What an interesting subject. You think you know history, and then you discover something new, and it's, you have to rewrite the history books. Absolutely amazing. Well, thank you all guys for joining us this morning. Katie, would you like to close us out with song?
I would love to. I just got to go outside because I'm at work.
Geez, it's so funny because you have that growing wall, that plant wall.
Yeah,
there.
that's the living wall. Yeah.
The living wall.
Yeah.
I like that Chris Parolo has already put on his hat, getting ready to go out and
Are we going to sing Danny Boy or Irish Eyes Are Smiling? What are we going to sing?
Well, I guess I could do that, but let's stick with God Bless America.
Okay.
If that's okay with everyone.
That's okay.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans wide with fun. God bless America, my home. God bless America, home sweet home.
Thank you, Katie.
I wasn't going up for the high note this time.
Thank you, Katie. Wonderful. Thank you so much, and it's good to see
So
you
good
again.
to see you guys again. Yep.
Good to see all of you, and
Take
hopefully
care.
we'll see you tomorrow night with Generation 9/11. All
Okay.
right. Take care. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick.